0517 local time. Steel shutters lock into place and a dull mechanical thud rolls through the forward mount as power comes online. Up on the bridge, no one even turns their head. No one needs to. That sound always means the same thing. The ship has just crossed an invisible line, shifting from routine watch standing to full readiness. Not because of an alarm, not because of some dramatic speech, because something on the scope has changed. New surface contact, the radar watch says in a flat, practiced voice. Bearing 248, range 21 nautical miles. The Caribbean is calm, deceptively calm, the kind of morning that makes the sea look harmless. The water lies almost glassy. The sun is just high enough to flash hard off the wake. Traffic is light. Fishing boats stay where they usually stay. Commercial vessels move along their predictable routes like pieces on a chart. But this contact does not. Speed, 9 knots. Course, drifting. AIS, none. That alone does not make it hostile, but it absolutely makes it interesting. For 30 seconds, the track holds. Then 40. Then the symbol twitches just enough to matter. A slight correction. Too controlled to be wind, too deliberate to be current. Contact altering course, the watch calls. New heading 185. The bridge goes quiet. Screens glow in the dim interior. The ship holds speed, holds course. No turn to intercept, no move to avoid. Procedure does not reward curiosity with movement. You do not chase uncertainty. You let it come closer and reveal itself. The range starts falling. 19 miles, 18, the surface picture around it becomes clearer. Known hulls, familiar vectors, clean geometry, but this contact remains different, almost suspiciously clean. No identification signal, no visible name, no flag through the long glass, only a low silhouette, riding deeper in the water than a boat of that size should. The officer of the deck leans forward, not nervous, focused. Hail it! The radio call goes out across open maritime channels. English first, then Spanish. Professional, clear, recorded. No emotion in it. Nothing comes back. The unknown vessel holds 9 knots for a moment longer, and then, without warning, it accelerates. 12 knots, the watch says. 14, 16. That is not a mistake. That is a choice. On the bridge, the captain never raises his voice. He does not need to. Set condition, he says. Log everything. The order moves through the ship without drama. No shouting, no panic. Key stations are manned. Cameras come alive. Electronic support measures begin listening harder, not aggressively searching, just collecting. Every signal, every burst, every faint electronic whisper, and still the contact keeps coming. At 16 knots, the geometry changes. The closest point of approach tightens. Not quite collision, but close enough to force a response. Close enough to test intent. Another hail goes out, shorter this time, firmer. Still nothing. Through optics, the hull begins to resolve. Fiberglass, weathered. Painted to look old, almost exhausted. But the wake tells a different story. The stern is digging in, the bow is riding heavy. That means weight, serious weight. Range 14 miles, the watch reports. The ship does not maneuver, that matters. If the destroyer moves first, it gives away initiative. Instead, she holds her line, steady and unmistakable. If the other vessel wants distance, it will have to create it. Then the contact surges again. Speed now 20 knots. That gets everyone's attention. A boat that size making 20 knots means engines pushed hard, fuel burning fast, machinery under strain. Whatever it is carrying matters enough to justify the risk. The captain studies the plot, then the glass, then the plot again. No warning shots, he says. Prepare intercept assets. Below and above decks, trained hands go to work. Not rushed, not reckless, just precise. On deck, the rigid hull inflatable boats are uncovered. Engines are checked. Lines are cleared. Every movement looks practiced because it is. The contact makes another small turn, only a few degrees. But it is enough. Enough to keep the approach uncomfortable. Enough to send a message. I see you. Range 10 miles. The sea remains calm. Sunlight dances across it. From a distance, it could all be mistaken for nothing more than 2 vessels sharing open water. But inside the ship, everyone understands the math. Decision time is shrinking fast. If the boat intends to run, it will run now. If it intends to stop, it will stop for a reason. At 8 miles, the contact does something unexpected. It slows. Speed dropping, the watch says. 15 knots, 13. Then it stops entirely. Engines to idle. Wake collapsing into ripples. The bridge absorbs that in silence. A vessel planning to escape does not usually stop in open water. And a vessel that stops here is not finished. It is choosing a different move. The captain gives a small nod. That's our answer. Outside, the calm sea closes around the now motionless hull. Inside, the intercept order is already in motion, and the clock starts counting in minutes. The command does not need to be repeated. Launch the RHIBs. Deck lighting shifts from white to red. Hands move with efficient economy. Lines are cleared, cradles unlock. The first rigid hull inflatable drops toward the water, engines already alive, throttles held just under a full roar. The second follows seconds later, clean and controlled, touching the surface with barely a splash. On the bridge, the picture tightens. The contact is dead in the water now. No flag raised. No visible crew through optics. Just a low hull rocking gently in the swell, bow still heavy, stern sitting lower than any ordinary fishing boat should. Maintain course, the captain says. Keep the geometry. The destroyer does not rush in. She does not need to. Her role is command and control. Her sensors do the hunting. She stays where she can see everything and where everything can see her. The RHIBs accelerate, but they do not drive straight at the target. They arc wide, one left, one right, flattening the approach angle. Textbook work. Force the unknown vessel to split its attention, remove blind spots, compress its options without ever touching the throttle on the larger ship. Range 5 miles. Still no movement from the target. That is wrong. A legitimate crew would be reacting by now. Throwing lines, reaching for radios, restarting engines, talking, gesturing, doing something. But this boat remains still, as if it is waiting for a script to begin. The RHIBs cut through the water at speed, leaving white, symmetrical wakes behind them. Cameras on their bows record everything. Rifles are carried low, muzzles pointed down, posture firm and controlled. This is not an assault, it is a boarding, until it becomes something else. Back on the bridge, electronic support measures start to whisper with fresh information. No alarm tones, just data. Narrow band activity, the ESM watch reports. Low power, short bursts, so something on board is alive electronically. A radio cycling, maybe a satellite handset, maybe a handheld device reaching for a signal that does not exist this far out. Either way, the silence on open channels is no longer ignorance, it is choice. At 3 miles, the target finally reacts. A figure appears on deck, then another, then a third. 3 people total. They do not wave, they do not call out. They stand stiff, hands visible, watching the RHIBs close in. The captain watches through the glass. Log posture, timestamp. The RHIBs slow as they approach. Engines drop from roar to growl. The water between them and the target smooths out, and the tension grows sharper because of it. Bridge to boarding teams, the officer of the deck says. You are clear to continue. The target's engines cough once, a brief churn, then die again. That says plenty. An engine that cannot restart quickly may have been run too hard and shut down hot. Or it may be an engine somebody does not want running once inspectors begin asking questions. At 1 mile, the geometry locks into place. One RHIB takes position off the bow quarter. The other settles near the stern. Cross coverage. No urgency in the movement, no shouting, just control. The destroyer adjusts speed slightly, just enough to keep the entire scene inside the envelope. From above, it would look calm, controlled, almost inevitable. Another hail goes out. Vessels stopped in international waters. State your intentions. This time, the response is not verbal. One man raises his hands slowly, palms out. Another copies him. The third remains near the cabin, half-turned, eyes shifting between the RHIBs and the destroyer looming behind them. No flag appears. Visual confirms 3 persons on deck, the RHIB lead reports. No visible weapons, no compliance signals beyond raised hands. Raised hands are not compliance. They are only a pause. The boarding officer studies the hull at close range now. The paint is chipped just enough to sell age. The nameplate is missing. Deck fittings look newer than they should. Scuppers are stained with residue that does not belong on a fishing boat. Marks along the waterline show recent heavy loading. Bridge, be advised, the boarding officer says. This vessel is carrying significant mass, likely internal. The captain nods once. Proceed. By the book. The RHIBs edge in closer. Fenders touch fiberglass softly. Hands reach out, testing stability. The boat barely moves. That much weight keeps it steady like something lifeless. The boarding ladder comes up. Boots pause at the rung. For a moment, everything seems suspended. Sea, steel, silence, men watching men. Then the first boot steps onto the deck, and the intercept becomes something else entirely. The ladder flexes once, then holds. The first sailor steps aboard without looking at the men first. His eyes go to footing, stability, clearance, space to move. The rifle stays low, fingers straight, muzzle pointed nowhere critical yet. United States Coast Guard, stand where you are. The words are calm, nearly routine. The three men do not move. They also do not protest. That is its own warning. Real fishermen talk. They complain. They explain. They ask what this is about. These men say nothing. Their eyes follow every movement with the measured focus of people who already understand how this scene usually ends. The second boarder comes up, then the third. The team spreads just enough to own the deck. No rushing, no noise. Control first, everything else after. Hands where we can see them. Hands remain up, palms open, still no words. The boarding officer takes in the details with a fast, trained scan. Boots too clean for a working boat. No bait boxes, no nets rigged, no ice. The smell is wrong too. Not fish, fuel, oil, and something chemical beneath it all. Secure the crew. Two sailors move in smoothly. Flex cuffs come out. Wrists together, no resistance. The men comply instantly, almost as if they have rehearsed it. Another warning sign. One of them flicks his eyes toward the cabin door as the cuffs tighten. Less than a second. But the boarding officer catches it. Hold here. Two-man check below. The cabin door opens slowly, hinges giving just enough of a squeal to sound neglected. Inside, the space looks cramped and carefully staged. A cooler, empty water bottles. A radio bolted down but switched off. Areas of the floor are cleaner than they should be. Then they see the hatch, centered, flush-mounted, sealed with fresh compound that has not yet had time to gather dirt. Thick duct tape layered over the edges. Plastic wrap stretched tight beneath it. That is not maintenance. That is concealment. The boarding officer kneels and presses down. The deck does not flex. Whatever sits beneath is dense, tightly packed, and heavy. Bridge, he says into his shoulder mic. We've got a sealed compartment. Indicators consistent with contraband. No excitement comes back over the net, only acknowledgement. Proceed, the officer of the deck replies. Document everything. A knife comes out. The tape peels back with a sound that seems unnaturally loud in the quiet. Plastic tears next, then burlap. The smell hits first, sharp, chemical, not fuel, not oil. The first package appears in the light, square, tight. Wrapped in layers, clearly meant to survive long exposure at sea. Another sits beside it, then another. The compartment is full. They count carefully without rushing. 19 bundles, stacked deliberately, not casually. Uniform in size, heavy enough that each one matters. One corner is open just enough to confirm the contents. Fine white powder, tightly packed. Nobody says the word aloud. They do not have to. Back on deck, the three detainees stare straight ahead. No shouting, no pleading. No breakdown. They know exactly what this means, perhaps better than anyone standing over them. Secure the compartment, the boarding officer orders. Photograph, tag, seal. Cameras click, evidence markers go down. Chain of custody begins immediately, not later. Every angle recorded, every layer noted. Nothing skipped, nothing assumed. One sailor checks the engine compartment. The blocks are still hot, proof they were recently pushed hard. Another checks the fuel tanks and finds auxiliary bladders hidden where water should have been stored. More weight, more preparation, more intent. This wasn't a one-off, the boarding officer says quietly. This was a delivery. Off the beam, the destroyer looms silent and steady, watching the entire scene from a distance with the patience of something that never needed to rush in the first place. The captain watches the live feed without reacting. No smile, no nod, no visible emotion. Just quiet focus. Confirm status, he says. Vessel secured, the boarding officer replies. Crew detained, contraband located, significant quantity. That's all that needs to be said. On deck, the detainees are seated with their backs against the cabin, legs folded, hands bound, a guard posted nearby. They don't look at the bundles being lifted into the sunlight one after another. They don't have to. Every dull thud as a package hits the deck says enough. Not dramatic, just final. The sun climbs higher. The sea remains calm, almost indifferent. From far away, the entire scene would look ordinary. Two small boats alongside a larger vessel, a gray warship holding position in the distance. Nothing about it would suggest that something major just ended here, but it did. In less than 30 minutes, an operation that likely took months to plan is finished. No chase, no shots, no chaos, just a ladder, a sealed hatch, and cargo that never reached land. The deck turns into a workspace. Bundles are lifted carefully, one at a time. Not because of their value, but because of procedure. Each one is placed in the sun, spaced evenly, photographed before it's moved again. Gloves are changed constantly, tags are attached, numbers are read out loud, repeated, confirmed. Nothing is rushed. Chain of custody doesn't begin in a courtroom. It begins here, on non-skid steel, in the middle of open water, with people who understand that one careless mistake can undo everything later. Each bundle is weighed, each layer is inspected, seals are intact. No water damage, no contamination. Whoever prepared this shipment intended for it to arrive clean and untouched. It didn't. The detainees sit quietly under watch. Posture straight, eyes forward, no conversation, no requests. They've already shifted roles, from operators to evidence. Their part ended the moment the hatch was opened. A crew member checks the bilge again, completely dry. No signs of fishing use, no residue, no wear consistent with that kind of work. This boat wasn't working the sea, it was moving through it, directly, quickly, with a single purpose. Initial count complete, the boarding officer reports. 19 bundles confirmed, uniform packaging, high confidence narcotics. Acknowledged immediately. No questions asked. The picture is already clear. Back on the destroyer, the Combat Information Center updates everything. Time of seizure, coordinates, personnel involved, sensor data archived. The ship doesn't celebrate, it simply transitions to the next phase. Because securing the cargo is only half the mission. Now the vessel itself becomes a controlled asset. Engines are secured, navigation is disabled, every compartment is checked, not for excitement, but for completeness. Smugglers sometimes leave surprises behind. Extra fuel, hidden devices, sometimes worse. Nothing dangerous turns up. It doesn't matter. What's already been found is enough. Out on the open water, traffic continues as if nothing happened. Ships pass at a distance. No one slows down. No one notices what just shifted within a network that stretches far beyond the horizon. The captain steps out onto the bridge wing and looks down through binoculars. The bundles are now arranged in a neat line, like bricks that will never be used. Recover the teams, he says. The RHIBs return alongside. Lines are passed, engines idle. Boarding teams step down the ladder with the same discipline they showed coming up. No celebration, no exchange looks, just controlled movement. The detainees are transferred next, hands still bound, counted, logged, monitored. Treated professionally, not harshly, not gently, just correctly. They are not questioned here. That's not part of this mission. As the RHIBs pull away, the seized vessel remains behind, low in the water, quiet, empty of purpose now. Its engines won't run again under its own command. From the bridge, the captain watches the distance grow. This is why they stopped, someone says quietly. He gives a small nod. They stopped because running was no longer an option, because weight slows everything down, because the window closed, because sometimes the ocean itself becomes a barrier you can't push through. Smugglers rely on gaps, on weather, distraction, timing, and luck. They don't rely on discipline. They don't expect constant surveillance. They don't expect a warship to be exactly where it shouldn't be. This time, that assumption failed. Back inside, reports are finalized. Numbers are locked in. Photos are verified. Every step is intentionally methodical, because method holds up later. The estimated value is calculated. It's massive, easily reaching into 9 figures. No one reacts. Money isn't the point. Impact is. One shipment stopped means more than just one loss. It creates delays. Routes go quiet. Handlers miss deadlines. Payments stall. Questions start being asked in places far removed from the ocean. That's the part no one sees. The destroyer adjusts course slightly and resumes its patrol. Ahead, the sea looks exactly the same as before. Blue, calm, empty. Behind it, the seized vessel drifts under control, waiting for transfer. The moment itself is already over. The interception took minutes. The preparation took years. The consequences will stretch much further. For the crew, though, it's simple. Another log entry. Another watch rotation. Another day where nothing dramatic happened, except that the right ship was in the right place at the right time. The handover happens later without ceremony. A cutter comes alongside. Steel meets steel in open water. Documents are exchanged. Evidence changes hands. The vessel is cataloged, secured, and taken under authority that doesn't need explanation. By the time lines are cast off, the destroyer is already turning back onto her patrol route. No speeches, no photos. The mission doesn't end with recognition, it ends with continuity. From the bridge, the ocean looks unchanged. That's the point. The sea doesn't advertise outcomes, it absorbs them quietly. What happened out here wasn't about speed or force. It was about certainty. Systems that didn't fail, procedures that didn't drift, people who didn't improvise when it mattered most. This is forward interdiction, stopping something before it becomes a problem somewhere else, before it funds something worse, before it disappears into places no patrol can reach. The destroyer doesn't chase rumors, it tracks patterns, routes, probabilities, behaviors that repeat until one day they don't. Smugglers study those patterns too. They test them, they adapt, they disguise their movements. They gamble that on the one critical morning, no one will be there. This time, they lost. One shipment gone doesn't end anything, but it disrupts everything. Delays ripple outward. Backup routes get overloaded. Plans shift under pressure. Trust begins to crack. That ripple won't appear on radar, but it's real. Back on board, watches rotate. Equipment is secured. Decks are washed down. Cameras are stored. Logs are signed. The ship returns to baseline readiness, exactly where it started. No one talks about the value. They don't need to. What matters is that the cargo never reached shore. That no force was needed. That everything ended quietly before it had the chance to escalate. Restraint here isn't passive. It's intentional. A destroyer doesn't need to chase small boats to succeed. It needs to be present where those boats don't expect it. It needs to turn uncertainty into inevitability. That's the real message. Not announced, not broadcast, just enforced. Somewhere far away, someone will notice a shipment that never arrived. There will be questions without clear answers, adjustments made too late. Plans rewritten with gaps where certainty used to be. Out here, the ocean keeps its silence, but the system remembers. The patrol continues. Another contact will appear one day, another shape that doesn't quite fit, another decision that has to be made in minutes, not hours. And when that moment comes, it will look the same. Calm bridge, clear orders, no drama. Because real power isn't in loud moments. It's in how quietly things are finished before they ever have a chance to begin. So think about this. If you were standing that watch, looking at a contact that ignored calls and didn't run when it should have, when would you know it was over? At the acceleration, at the silence, or at the exact moment it stopped and waited? Write your answer in the comments. Out here, the difference between a chase and a clean intercept isn't luck. It's judgment.